Welcome to the 2025 Dialogue, a masterclass series by the HR Association of India. I am Neha Jagnani, and today's session dives into a topic that lies at the heart of every thriving organization: building high impact teams. To guide us through this insightful conversation, we have with us Manu Saigal, Country Manager India at Hayes. Manu is an accomplished business leader with deep expertise in talent, strategy, and organizational growth. Over the years, she has built and nurtured teams that not only deliver results, but also inspire collaboration, trust, and innovation. Her belief is simple yet powerful. When individuals come together with purpose and alignment, extraordinary impact becomes possible. Manu, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Completely my pleasure.
Thank you so much. So, to begin with, Manu, my first question for you is: what are the top three ingredients, according to you, which are non-negotiable in creating a high impact teams?
Yeah. So for me, Neha, there are these three things that are absolutely non-negotiable if you want to build a high impact team. And the first thing there is clarity of purpose. Now, if people don't know why they are together, you can have all the talent in the world and still go nowhere. So teams come alive when they understand exactly what winning looks like. Now, the second is trust, and this is more specifically the psychological safety. And there's this very fascinating study that Google had done once. It's called Project Aristotle. And they spent almost some 2.5 years studying more than 180 teams within the company in Google, trying to figure out why some teams they thrived and the other teams they struggled. And they looked at everything. They looked at within the team, what's the balance between introverts and extroverts, how often the teams are socializing, and even how smart those individuals are in the team. And what they discovered was that none of that explained the performance consistently across the teams. The number one factor was the psychological safety. Basically, do people feel safe to speak up? Do they feel safe to admit mistakes or challenge an idea without a fear of being judged or punished? So to me, that's the second key thing: the trust and the psychological safety. And the third is having complementary strengths with accountability. You don't need, let's say, there's a football match, and you don't need all of them to be strikers. You need that balance. So everyone has to play to their strength and to bring something different to the table, but also take ownership of their role. That combination of diverse strengths plus the real accountability is what turns a group into a team. So to me, these are the three pieces which are absolutely non-negotiable if you are building a high impact team.
Sure, beautifully put, Manu. So, just to summarize, there is clarity of purpose, asking the why,
Yeah.
knowing the why. Second is trust, which leads you to psychological safety, and a great
Yeah.
example of Google research there. Last but not the least, complementary skills with accountability, that ownership that plays a critical role.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. Moving on to the next question, Manu, which is: how do you balance individual strengths with team goals without diluting either?
Yeah. Yeah. So now this is always a tricky one. How do you let the individuals really shine without losing the sight of team's bigger goals? And I always think of it like an orchestra. You can have someone play the violin brilliantly. You can have someone on the piano and incredible at it. There could be a world class drummer, but if they all were doing their own things, then it's just noise. Now, the magic happens when they all play in harmony. And that's how I look at teams. Now, each person brings something unique, but the leader's role is to make sure those trends are aligned to the bigger picture. Now, one practical way I do is by literally mapping individual strengths to the team objectives. So if the team goal is, let's say we are launching a new product. We look at who's brilliant at strategy, who is good at execution, who is absolutely great at communication, and we align those strengths together to those parts of the goal. And that way, everyone feels that they're playing to what they do best, but it's still in the service of the larger outcome they are doing. And a very simple exercise that really works wonders is, one can ask team members to share one sentence. Uh, this is one thing you can always count me for, and let them put that out there. So we put those statements up on the wall or on a whiteboard, and suddenly you have these visual, it's like a strength map of the team. And it does two things. First, it builds confidence. People feel valued because their strengths are right up there, they're visible and they're acknowledged. And the second is it builds trust, because now everyone knows exactly who to lean on for what. So I've seen the energy shift instantly when we start doing these things. People stop stepping on each other's toes, or instead they start complimenting each other. And it's a very small thing, but it's very, very powerful because it ensures that individual brilliance is fueling the team's success and not competing within it. So that's my take on that.
Sure. Thank you, Manu. Such a practical way. I think the crux of it is when you give people the opportunity to talk about what they can do best, that's when it's more impactful, more than delegating, more than just looking at the larger scenario. So thank you so much for the input. My next question, Manu, is can you share an example of when you turned a group of individuals into a high performing team?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll give you an example from my own experience first and then maybe talk a little more about it. I once worked with a group of incredibly smart and capable people. And if you look at it on paper, they were a dream team. Every skill you could imagine was there in the room, but in practice, they were kind of operating in silos. Everyone was busy, everyone was delivering their own piece of the puzzle, but the whole thing never came together really. So the meetings, if you go into the meetings, also the meetings were all updates, but they were never conversations, and you could feel it that they weren't really a team. It was just a collection of high performers. And the first step was getting them aligned on purpose. I remember asking them the very simple question, why do we exist as a team? At first, it sparked some debate because up until then, they have been focused on individual outputs. But slowly, they began to articulate a shared purpose, something bigger than their individual goals. Then I kind of deliberately set up projects where the success was impossible unless they leaned on each other's expertise. It was more like, setting up those cross-functional projects. So at first it was a little clumsy. People kind of hesitated. Some were very protective of their work. But over time, I think when the trust starts to build in, they began to, they began brainstorming together. They began to solve problems collectively, and that shift was incredible. They didn't just deliver the results; they actually enjoyed working together, and that's when a group of brilliant individuals truly become high performing team. And this, if you were to pick it up from an example, it is not just a business phenomena. You also see that in sports. And why I'm picking up sports is because everyone can relate to it. You take an example of 1983 Indian cricket, the World Cup team. Now, if you look at them before the tournament, few would have expected them to win. Teams like West Indies were full of world-class stars, while India's lineup wasn't considered very flashy or individually dominant. But India had something very, very powerful. They had the teamwork, the trust, the clarity of roles. I think every player knew exactly what they were there to contribute, whether it was the bowling the tight overs or fielding brilliantly or chipping in with those steady results. So, and each player kind of stepped up in their own role and complemented each other and trusted the system. And that collective focus and shared purpose carried them all the way to a historic victory over the West Indies in the final. So both these examples, if you look at it, same principle. Individual brilliance can only take you so far. The moment you got to change the me to a we, and it's the alignment, the trust, and the shared accountability that we over me mindset that transforms a group of people into a high impact high impact team. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much. Such a great example. And my takeaway personally is that from collection of high performing individuals to reaching to a high impact team, what bridges the gap is the shared sense of purpose and trust. And as you said, we replaced, me replaced
Me.
me. Yeah. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. That's a great takeaway. My next question, Manu, is what role does inclusivity play in building trust and collaboration within teams?
Yeah. I think inclusivity is a massive part of building a high impact team. Now, if people don't feel included, they don't feel like they belong, and if they don't belong, they won't take risk, or they won't share the best of the ideas. And one example I love here is from Amazon. They often keep, whenever they're doing an internal team meeting, they often keep an empty chair in the meeting to represent the customer. Now, that's a very, very symbolic way of saying there's always a voice that we need to include, and that kind of reflects how um, customer obsessed Amazon is. Now, this is just one example, but then it is important that each one of the team members who is there feels heard and is safe in terms of sharing their ideas. And you don't need a very fancy symbol to make inclusivity happen. One of the simplest or most effective ways I have seen, and that's something that I practice, is to go round robin at end of the every meeting. There could be through the meeting there could be some people who would have not spoken or who would have not shared. But then if you go round robin and make sure that everyone gets their airtime and you ask for everyone's input before you're closing the meeting. Sometimes, the Neha, the quietest person in the room has the most game-changing idea. Um, but you only if you give them that space to speak. It's not always the loudest person in the meeting. So you've got to make sure that everybody is speaking up and everybody has their own kind of airtime, so that you've heard everyone and it's inclusive. And inclusivity isn't just about fairness, or it's not just about ticking a box. It's about unlocking better collaboration. More innovative solutions comes in from those brainstorming sessions, and a team where everyone feels that their contribution matters. So when people feel that, the trust grows, the risk taking improves, and the team really starts to perform.
Sure. Thank you so much. I think creating that ecosystem where people feel a sense of belonging actually makes them thrive. So thank you so much for that. This brings us to the last question, Manu, which is how can leaders sustain momentum and motivation when once the team reaches a peak performance?
Yeah, so let's say, okay, you have got the dream team. It's high performing, it's firing all the cylinders. The challenge is that how do you keep it going? Because it's very easy to become complacent after a while. You are performing, and great, and then there comes a slope. So there are these three things that have worked for me. First, um, is to set targets and set a bit stretch challenges. They are stretched, they are ambitious, but there's something that one can achieve, right? And new goals that excite people and keep them moving forward, but you have to make sure that it doesn't burn them out. So that's one that works for me. Second is to build a culture of learning, whether it is a new skill or a cross training or experimenting with fresh ideas. Growth keeps energy alive. If you keep doing the same thing again and again, and like I said, you can be complacent, but you're also not learning. So you can't be prepared for the next role. And how do you prepare for next role is by a lot of sometimes unlearning too, but a lot of upskilling and a lot of training, so that you prepare yourself for the next role. And that's how you keep sustaining that momentum. And the third thing that I'm really fond of is to celebrate. I think recognition, even if it is small rituals of appreciations, that keeps the team going a long way and keeps the motivation levels very high. So I think these are the three key things that have really worked for me. I've seen teams plateau because they probably stopped learning, and I've seen others stay on the top because they never stopped kind of challenging themselves and celebrating along way, even if it is those small milestones that they are achieving. I think that creates quite a strong culture which sustains the momentum at the peak performance.
Sure. Thank you so much, Manu. So, just to summarize, there is setting targets and ensuring that there is no burnout, building a
Yep.
culture of learning, upskilling to make sure that things don't get monotonous. Last but not the least, to celebrate every little win. So, recognition plays a key role to keep up with that momentum. So, thank you so much. This brings us to the end of this masterclass. Thank you for sharing your invaluable insights today. You have shown us that high impact teams don't just happen, they are built with
Yep.
intention, trust, and a shared sense of purpose. So, thank you so much for your
Yep.
insights today.
Thank you so much, Neha. It's always a pleasure to be here talking
Always
to
a
you.
pleasure, Manu, to have you and share your insights in these masterclasses. Thank you so much once again.